So looking here at learning target 5, we're focusing in on the divergent boundary. We got 3 parts to tackle here. We've got an ocean-ocean boundary to label a few things, a continent-continent boundary to label a few things, and then down here an explanation of why these plates are moving in that way. And you have our notes from class along with those paragraph resources to really help you with those. So for starters, let's go back here. Our divergent boundary, we know happens in 2 situations with 2 types of crust. So you could go ahead and fill those in, right? This one here is ocean-ocean. We see the water happening all across this image. No water down here. This is our continent-continent type of boundary. And both types of crusts, no matter what, in a divergent are always moving apart or away from each other. So we should be able to get those arrows in. Now, one of the things we're noticing at every single plate boundary is earthquakes, because that's what a boundary is, right? A spot where 2 plates interact and move. And so earthquakes are created at every single type of plate boundary. And when we look at our divergent earthquakes, what we're looking at here is all these sections where we see a smattering, a really nice consistent line, but then a smattering of these red earthquakes. And those, of course, on our diagram were always shallow. So this type of boundary is making earthquakes all along that boundary line where the 2 plates meet, only at shallow depths. So on your diagram, you can be labeling up the earthquakes like this, with that X showing that they're moving, they're happening shallow and right on the boundary, right? I'm not going to put any over here to the side or down here at the bottom. I only want them here on the boundary at the surface. So make sure you're thinking about that. Just this area right here. We already got the arrows in. We do have some volcanic activity right on the boundary, right? We've got our magma working its way up, and that's what creates this boundary. That heat from the core down here is causing that rising material, creating the separation of those plates. That's our ridge push force, and moving those plates apart. Now in an ocean-ocean image, you can label up the mid-ocean ridge. Not, of course, seen in our continent-continent. But right in the middle of that mid-ocean ridge, we do have this rift valley right here where the magma is working its way up. And that, of course, is our source of brand new crust, or we call that the baby basalt, right? So we have our new crust happening right there on both boundaries. So Rift Valley and new crust should be labeled on both pictures. And then that mid-ocean ridge is only going to be showing on that ocean-to-ocean image where we have that magma or that large increase in elevation right on the plate boundary. That's our mid-ocean ridge. So you should have your 2 pictures labeled up, and then a description of kind of this underneath part, right, and how that drives the plates on the surface. And as always in your learning targets, you have those keywords to make sure you use and include in your description.